how you doing? You're doing location, yeah. Ross's?
Yeah.
Doesn't say that here.
That's okay. You can have
Cool. The regular meeting of the Annapolis City Council on Monday, April 23rd, 2018 will be called to order at 7 p.m. At this time, would everyone willing and able please stand for the invocation given by Alderman Arnett, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I normally just ask for a moment of silence. I believe strongly in separation of church and state, but today I think I'm going to ask that we all have extra positive thoughts. We have so much turmoil in the country and in the city, and I'd like us all to remember that we're working together for the common good of everyone. Thank you. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley.
Aye.
Alderwoman Tierney.
Aye.
Alderman Payon.
Present.
Alderwoman Pendel Charles.
Here.
Alderwoman Finlayson.
Present.
Alderman Rodriguez.
Here.
Alderwoman Henson. Here. Alderman Savage.
Present.
Alderman Arnett.
Present.
Okay, Mr. City Attorney, please read the first item on the agenda.
The first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended to withdraw Ordinance O-15-18, lease of city property, Truxton Park wet slip. Is there any discussion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
That's it. Okay, good.
Mr. City Attorney, next item on the agenda, please.
The next item on the agenda is petitions, reports, and communications, beginning with reports by committees.
Any older person like to present? Raj. Move on.
Oh, no, I think I had something.
Oh, Rob.
I can't find my notes, but so I just wanted to report that the last Environmental Matters Committee meeting, we received a report on the solar farm that's being installed at the landfill, and it's progressing very nicely, and we'll actually be bringing in some revenue for the city eventually. And I'm interested in setting up a tour. If anybody wants to join me, I'll send that out to everybody. What else? So we heard a presentation on the the draft no discharge zone application from David Barker and the Back Creek Conservancy. And but once that application is final, I'll be in communication if the council wants to receive a full report on that entire application at one of our work sessions. But that's coming down the pike here in May. Oh, and we did interview Ms. Guild at that meeting. Just had a conversation, I don't know if I call it an interview, conversation with her. And the committee did recommend favorably. I know we didn't have to do that, but we decided to make that recommendation.
We wanted to.
We wanted to. Concludes my report. Thank you.
Okay. Alderwoman Pendel Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Public Safety Committee met on the first Monday of April. We approved our minutes. We had an update from Annapolis Fire Department Acting Chief Romali. We also had an overview of the 2017-2018 Warming Relief Program at the Stanton Center, and also made a favorable recommendation to the entire council regarding the Police Advisory Board. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Please present the next item on the agenda.
The next item on the agenda is comments by the general public.
Just going to check the sign-up sheet. During comments by the general public, the public may speak on any item not scheduled for public hearing tonight. Legislation scheduled for public hearing is O-8-18, adequate public facilities, adequate school facilities standards. Is there anyone here who would wish to speak? Okay.
Look, Regina's got a list. Yep.
Seeing no motion in the chamber, I declare comments by the general... Oh,
You got
all right,
motion.
there we go. Please state your name and address, please.
Elvia Thompson, 704 South Cherry Grove Avenue. And I'm here tonight to speak, to thank you for the nomination of Jackie Guild as the environmental department head. We're very happy about that, and I think I can speak for the environmental community that we're just thrilled with that. And just wanted you to know that everybody's behind her.
Thank you. Seeing no motion in the chamber, I declare the comments by general public closed. Mr. City Attorney, next item on the agenda.
Next item on the agenda is an update from the mayor.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Today's been a great day so far. Started the day with a tree planting at Annapolis Elementary to celebrate Arbor Day. That's my son's school. Then we had a press conference in honor of Earth Day to announce our top environmental priorities. One of those priorities is getting our nominees for director, the nominee for director of Office of Environmental Policy, Ms. Jackie Guild, approved here tonight. So thank you for your support of this outstanding nominee. I'm going to thank you in advance, you guys, to lead our city's environmental program. I also look forward to the approval of two appointees for the Board of Directors for the Housing Authority of the City of Annapolis. Mr. Michael Miller and Mr. Phil Gibbs are tremendously qualified to join Beverly Wilborn and her team at HACA. And I would finally like to end with a great story about a crew working in Eastport on a project that had gone above and beyond the call of duty. As many of you know, Burnside Street and many streets in Eastport are being repaved. This story is about a crew from our contractor, Stanley Concrete of Annapolis Junction. I would like to read a Facebook post from the ever-popular Eastport Neighbourhood Forum. You might have heard of it. It was posted by Eastport resident Tyson Heck, and first I would like to thank Tyson for taking the time to post this story, which I'll now read. The 400 block of Burnside Street is receiving a much-needed repave, which will necessarily have temporarily eliminated the parking spaces for which the elderly men and women who live in this house use. The couple both have trouble walking and rely on parking in front of their house to make life much easier. Today, as the lady returned from the grocery store and had to park her car further away, I saw one of the road crew workers recognize her from working here over the last few days, stop what he was doing, walk to the car, and carry all her groceries to her house for her. I thought this act of kindness was worth sharing. This gentleman had been nothing but kind to all the occupants of the houses being affected by the work. They've gone door to door to find owners of cars who don't move their vehicles for the work and have found a way to hook up a hose to wash the dust off the cars whose owners they couldn't track down and had to work around. No tow trucks needed, just a little patience, good time management. Considering all the road work taking place in Eastport and the inconvenience it all caused, I thought this was a nice story to share. That was the post. So, thank you. I'd like to thank Stanley Concrete crew, but especially Mr. Rick Savage, who carried those groceries, and Mr. Larry Johnson, the project foreman, who hosed off the cars that were affected by the project. All right, let's have a look. Thank you to everyone for doing an outstanding job to keep the city's pledge to provide outstanding customer service and city service for our residents and taxpayers. I'd also like to make an announcement about this Saturday at City Dock. We have Fred Kent, one of the most famous placemaking designers in the world, coming to our City Dock. We are setting a tent up with a couple of hundred seats, and we have an opportunity to reimagine what our City Dock could look like as a public space. A lot of us campaigned here on the City Dock Master Plan, and we were for a park, not a parking lot, but we need citizens' input. So, and you're a citizen, and this is your city. If you live in Arnold or Edgewater or Crownsville or at any of the other wards, it is your downtown, it is your city, and we need your help to decide what we want that public space to look like. So this event will not be about the hotel particularly. It won't be about underground parking. It'll be about what we could do better at our City Dock. Because we all know pretty soon that the yacht club is going to go back to its home, and we're going to have another underperforming space at the City Dock. So please, if any of you are available, this Saturday at 9 o'clock, City Dock. Thank you. Alderman Pindell-Charles, sir.
Thank you so much. At this time, you indicated that we had the Arbor Day celebration at Annapolis Elementary. I'd like to give a shout out to two of our stellar Ward 3 persons through the Greater Parole Community Association, Mr. Lon Powell and Mr. Terrence Wright, who did receive 2 awards today in honor of Arbor Day, and thank them so very much, as well as the association. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Mayor.
And also, I've just seen this note. Let's extend our sympathy for the 3 victims of the Arundel Lodge group home fire and the 12-year-old boy killed in Arnold today, which is a terrible tragedy. So I'd like to take a moment of silence for that, please. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
The next item on the agenda is an appointments item beginning with AP-3-18, the appointment of Phil Gibbs to the HACA board.
At this time, I would entertain a motion to confirm the appointment of Phil Gibbs to the HACA board.
So moved. And I also must say he's a great driver when we go tour housing.
I second.
Any discussion? Okay, Alderwoman Henson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Gibbs and Mr. Miller as well did come before the Housing and Human Welfare Committee. We had the opportunity to review their extensive credentials and really get to understand better their desire, their passion for wanting to work with the public housing community. Perhaps we could take a look at the way that we do our boards and commissions. We had to go through kind of a bit of a painstaking process with the nominees as well, because they didn't have notice about the type of questions we would ask them. If perhaps we could do the disclosures kind of up front at the point where a person is being appointed. That way we have the opportunity to kind of flesh out any potential conflicts of interest and give the nominee the opportunity to make a real informed decision on whether or not they would even still like to serve on the board or commission given the restrictions. The Housing Authority nominees per the state law are bound to the same ethical rules and requirements that we are. And some of those extend even beyond the position, like not being able to perform duties for compensation for 1 year after. So we did kind of take the effort to go through the code. The nominees were very patient and answered all of the questions that we asked them regarding any potential conflicts of interest, any disclosures that we felt like should be done up front, so that they could make an informed decision and we could make an informed decision as well. So I do want the public to know that the Housing and Human Welfare Committee did try to do our very best due diligence to really go over everything with the nominees. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favour of Mr. Gibb, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, thank you, Mr. Gibb. We really appreciate it. We know you believe in the mission, and we know you'll be excellent for the board. Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, next item on the agenda.
The next item on the agenda is an appointments item, beginning with AP-4-18, the appointment of Mike Miller to the HACA Board.
At this time, I'd entertain a motion to confirm the appointment of AP-4-18, the appointment of Mike Miller.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favour?
I just want to
Alderman
say,
Rodriguez?
I just want to say I'm so grateful, Mike, Mr. Miller, that you're taking it on. I know I have the honor of having him be my friend and a mentor for the last few years, and I just know your dedication to the community, along with Cheryl and Melissa, and I look forward to continue to work very closely with you. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Okay. Alderwoman Finlayson?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Miller has been a strong advocate of our city for a number of years. He lives just outside the city borders, but we claim him anyway, and clearly he has claimed us. So I am very proud that he has offered to step up to help us, and he is going to be an excellent, excellent addition to the board. So thank you, Mr. Miller, for accepting.
We're going to swear you in now, if that's okay, so you don't have to make an extra. Oh,
You have to
okay.
vote.
Alderwoman Pendell Charles?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Miller. Appreciate it.
Okay, all those in favour of Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Say
Aye.
Against? Ayes have it. All right. Going to save you one step.
You're not going to do
Okay,
Jack?
please come forward. Yeah. We're just going to swear him in now.
I, Michael Miller, I, Phil Gibbs,
Do swear
do swear
or affirm to the case it may be,
or affirm to the case it may be
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States,
and that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
and I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
to the state of Maryland
to the state of Maryland,
and support the Constitution and laws
and support the Constitution and laws
thereof,
thereof,
and that I will,
and that I will,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
diligently and faithfully,
diligently and faithfully,
without partiality or prejudice,
without partiality or prejudice,
execute the office of member of the Housing Authority Board,
execute the office of member of the Housing Authority Board,
according to the Constitution and laws
according to the Constitution and laws
of this state
of this state,
and the Charter and Code
and the Charter and Code
of the City of Annapolis.
of the City of Annapolis.
Thank you for your patience. It's been a long road. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
The next item on the agenda is an appointment, AP-5-18, confirmation of Jacqueline S. Guild, Director, Office of Environmental Policy.
This time I would entertain a motion to confirm the appointment of Jacqueline S. Guild as Director, Office of Environmental Policy.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Alderman Savage?
Thank you. I just want to say a few words. I haven't known Jackie for very long. It's actually been a relatively short period of time. But I feel like I've known her for much longer because her reputation, but also the reputation of the Chesapeake Legal Alliance, her organization, really precede her. And I've known about both of them for many, many years. And everything I've heard has been just incredibly positive, not only from fellow environmentalists, but from the attorneys who've worked with and for Chesapeake Legal Alliance, and also the many numerous community groups that they've represented. So I'm very excited about this, and I think it's very important, the reputation, because this position is going to be using those networks and also doing a lot of collaboration both within and outside the city. So, given the challenges we face, in my view, I think her background, approach, and skill set are really what we need. And I'm confident that Jackie Guild will lead this office and the city into a very green future. And I want to commend the mayor on making a very excellent nomination. So, thank you.
Alderman Arnett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just note that I've had a pleasing number of emails supporting Jackie's nomination, much more than the ordinary amount of emails. So she must be doing something right.
Alderwoman Tierney?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to add that our mayor, Mayor Gavin, already had Jackie plant a tree today, shovel and all, in high heels. Actually, she took her high heels off, but
All those in favour of Jackie Guild, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Ayes have it. Okay. Alderman Savage?
Thank you. If I could just speak out of order a bit. I just wanted to thank Ms. Racine Hodo. She's been the acting director for the office for a number of weeks now, I believe. And I just want to say, I did not know her personally beforehand, but we ran into each other at a number of events, and I've just been incredibly impressed with her professionalism. She just jumped right in, went way above and beyond, and I can't, just her poise as well when she had challenging questions at these meetings. And so yeah, I want to thank you, and for everything I've heard from the community has been very positive in your dealings. So thank you again for stepping in.
Okay, Ms. Guild, can you come up front to take the oath, please? That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
And that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance.
That I will be faithful and bear true allegiance.
To the state of Maryland.
To the state of Maryland.
And support the Constitution and laws thereof.
And support the Constitution and the laws thereof.
And that I will do the best of my skill and judgment.
That I will do the best of my skill and judgment.
Diligently and faithfully without partiality.
Diligently and faithfully without partiality.
Or prejudice, execute the office of Environmental Policy Director.
Or prejudice, execute the office of Environmental Policy.
According to the Constitution and laws of this state.
According to the Constitution and the laws of this state.
And the Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
The next item on the agenda is the approval of the consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar include first readers O-18-18 Public Services, Title 16 Code Amendments, referred to the Environmental Matters Committee, R-17-18 Weather It Together, Cultural Resources Hazard Mitigation Plan, referred to Environmental Matters Committee. Second readers O-7-18 Board of Port Wardens Appeals, O-11-18 Stanton Center Lease Agreement, Anne Arundel Workforce Development Corporation, R-10-18 Filing of Grant Application with the Maryland Transit Administration. And that is the end of the consent calendar items.
So move.
No objections to the consent calendar?
Just one bit of discussion. It's almost a shame that we're doing the weather together on the consent calendar. This is a culmination of a number of years of effort on the part of the city, and it really does put us at the vanguard in the entire nation in addressing sea level rise. And I'm happy to have this on the consent calendar, but this really is quite an achievement on the part of the city.
Okay, hearing no objection, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I move it again.
All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Oh, sorry, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley?
Aye.
Alderwoman Tierney?
Aye.
Alderman Payon?
Aye.
Alderwoman Pendle Charles?
Aye.
Alderman Finlayson?
Aye.
Alderman Rodriguez?
Aye.
Alderwoman Henson? Aye. Alderman Savage?
Aye.
Alderman Arnett?
Aye.
Ayes have it again. Okay. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
The next item on the agenda is public hearings continued, beginning with Ordinance O-8-18, Adequate Public Facilities, Adequate School Facilities Standards, for the purpose of amending the test for additional school capacity by requiring schools with enrollment greater than 95% of the state-rated capacity to be listed as closed on the annual school utilization chart and matters generally relating to adequate school facilities.
Okay, we have one speaker, my friend Jess Packler.
Hi, my name is Jessica Packler. I live at 506 President Street in Eastport. And as all of you know, I have 4 children, and 3 of them are currently attending Annapolis Public Schools. I am also a member of the Annapolis Education Commission and have been for a number of years, and I am also leading the Learning and Leisure Transition Team currently. And so you'll hear me speak more about this at the transition team in general about learning in the city on Thursday, which I hope you all plan to attend. But tonight I'm speaking specifically about this ordinance. And this ordinance is an incredibly important ordinance. Education in the city of Annapolis is incredibly important. Education anywhere, obviously, is important. But our children deserve the opportunity to have the best education that we can give them, especially the large number of children in our community who don't have a choice as to which school they get to attend. In the city of Annapolis, we have a lot of have and have-nots. We have people who have the choice to choose the schools they want to attend, and we have people who don't have a choice over which school they attend. And this ordinance goes directly to protecting those children who don't have a choice. And it goes to protecting those children whose parents do have a choice and choose to send them to our public schools. An overcrowded school is a school where a child cannot get the support and the resources that they need to have a good education. This is particularly important for children who come into school with special needs, who come into school from challenging situations. If they come into school and they are attending a crowded school, whether it is an elementary school, a middle school, or most especially a high school, they will not get the resources and support they need to get the education that they need to better their lives, to improve their lives, to get the jobs and the further education that they need. This bill is what the city can do to help this problem. Everyone will say, but AACPS is the group, they're the ones who are in charge of how big the schools are, they're the ones who are in charge of how many teachers there are and how many resources they are, which is true. But this bill, this group of people, this city, this administration, and our city government, they are the people that are in charge of how many people can live within the various areas of our community. And this bill is a smart bill. It sets a good limit of 95%, and it sets it for housing developments that are bigger than 11 units. It makes smart decisions so that our children aren't forced into overcrowded situations where it could be years and years. It can be an entire child's education before remediation is done for an overcrowded school. Anyone whose child goes to Tyler Heights or has gone to Tyler Heights in the last 10 years speaks to exactly that. They have been waiting and waiting for remediation for their overcrowded school, and they're finally getting it, but it's too late for an entire generation of students. Your city council, you all need to do what you can to support our children, to make education in the city of Annapolis the best that it can be. And while you aren't AACPS, and AACPS does have control over a lot of things, this is particularly something that you have control over. And I know the developers will say things about property value and all sorts of things, but strong schools affect property value too. And if you want to have strong schools in the city of Annapolis, you can't have overcrowded schools. You have to have schools where the students are getting the education they need to get the test scores that they deserve to be achieving and to be able to move on. It is incredibly important that this bill be supported, that this bill get passed, and that our students, that you all show that you are supporting our students, your residents in the city of Annapolis. Thank you.
Alderman Arnett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Jess, for coming out to testify. Alderwomen Finlayson and Pendle Charles and I were at the Education Commission, and it's not just about the children. We heard a couple of impassioned discussions from teachers about how overcrowding affects them and affects their ability to do the job. One of them happens to be my sister, so it's close to home, but still, this is really very important, and it is about the future leaders, the future council members of the city. And so I do thank you for coming out and supporting the legislation that this side of the aisle is sponsoring.
It's also about the quality of life. If you don't have good schools or people don't feel strong and capable of their schools, it's a general feeling of quality of life, and that affects the quality of life of the whole city, whether you have students or not, whether you have children or not. So, thank you.
Alderman Savage.
Yeah, thank you, Jess, for coming out. And I did want to ask you about your experience with the Annapolis Education Commission. Have they developed a recommendation for this ordinance, or if not, was the recommendation developed for the last time this came up?
Yes, when the last ordinance that came up, we did put forth a motion of support of the last ordinance. Unfortunately, some personal issues among certain of the people who were creating the motion for this particular ordinance did not come through, but I know that there have been other members that have come up and spoken during the public testimony. I think you've also received maybe written testimony from some of the other commission members. So I can't speak for the whole commission about this specific ordinance, but we were strongly in support of the previous ordinance, and I mean, we all believe that overcrowding is not an option. And the thing that's important to recognize is that this is specifically speaking about developments that are 11 buildings or more than 11 buildings. There's still building going on, 11 and smaller, throughout. There are empty lots all over the city that get built. So even though this is specifically speaking, so if it stops it at 95%, for example, that doesn't mean that there isn't more building going on, and it doesn't mean that people aren't still moving in. So even at 95%, in the 6 years, or however long it takes to remediate that, the school, unfortunately, can still get to 100%, and I think that's something to take into account. When we're right now at 120%, again, you get to 120%, by the time remediation happens, that school can be at 140%. And anybody who's walked in the doors of Tyler Heights knows what a horrible situation that is. And Annapolis High School is en route to be at 100%, if not over, within the next 2 years. And our high school kids, they have enough challenges as it is being high school kids in the 2000s. They don't need an overcrowded school to make it even harder for them.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jess. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
So much. Thank you. Is anyone else present who would like to speak? Please come forward at this time. I declare the public hearing on O-8-18 closed. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
The next item on the agenda is legislative actions on second readers, beginning with Ordinance O-10-18, Police Advisory Board, for the purpose of establishing the Police Advisory Board, authorizing the powers and duties of the board, and matters generally relating to the Police Advisory Board.
Is there a motion to adopt O-10-18 on second reader?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favour? Oh, no, oh, sorry, discussion, sorry. Whoop. Alderman Finlayson?
Amendment. Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Rules and City Government Committee approved with amendments, and I think the amendments are attached to your document. There are 5 amendments. For the most part, they're what's the term I want? They're not significant amendments, but they are more editorial amendments.
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the Rules Committee approved amendments, and those amendments came back to the Law Office, and the Law Office found that the last 2 of the 5 we could not amend. So the Public Safety Committee amendments are the ones that you should be moving.
So should I be moving 1 through 3 of the Rules Committee?
Yes.
And not 4 and 5?
That is correct.
Okay. If that's good with the committee, I'm good. The First Amendment, page 2, line 5, inserts the statement, membership shall be solicited through a variety of methods, including direct solicitation through community organizations and through the use of social media as appropriate. Amendment 2, also page 2, line 22, deletes the term bylaws and inserts rules of procedure. And Amendment 3, also on page 2, line 27, after the word adopt, delete bylaws and, after rules, delete and regulations, and insert of procedure.
So move the amendments.
May I discuss the discussion with the amendments?
Alderman Henson?
If we're looking at the public safety amendments, there's slight variations in the language on amendment number 1. In the rules and governance, public safety says membership shall be solicited through a variety of methods to provide reasonable notice to Annapolis residents of a vacancy on the board, including direct solicitation through community organizations and use of social media as appropriate. So I don't know if we are going to then vote on these, then which would control, if we're amending that line with two different sentences. I don't know which would control, but I think the public safety amendments does make it even more broad to say that reasonable notice must be given to the residents.
The public safety amendment appears to be addressing time, while the Rules and City Government Committee seems to be addressing the organization, community organizations. Am I wrong?
Community organizations is listed in the public safety amendment, and it does additionally address doing it, the notice being reasonable and there being notice. So with the reasonable standard on the notice, it does seem to get into some meaningful time frame where you advertise and people have the opportunity to respond. I think it's serves both goals there.
Okay, well then, I'm flexible with the will of the committee if we delete Amendment 1, and we'll defer to the Public Safety Committee for their Amendment number 1, and then we'll only address Amendments 2 and 3 from the Rules Committee, if I can count on the indulgence of the committee.
I agree.
Got a
Okay.
second?
Sure. I second.
So I'll move Amendments 2 and 3 from the Rules Committee amendment.
Discussion? Okay, do a roll call? All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Mr.
Are you going to offer?
Mr.
Yes,
Mayor.
he has a question. Alderman Savage has a question.
Yeah, I just have a
Alderman
question.
Savage?
So I understand the legal department in terms of removing Amendment 4, but I thought it might be worth mentioning that, if I recall correctly, the intention of the committee was to make more of a distinction between, to make a distinction that this Police Advisory Board is different than the rest of our codified boards and commissions. So that it's not actually subject to the same open meetings standards, I'm sorry, not open meeting, but not open to the same standards in terms of having recorded minutes.
Well, I defer to
appointments.
the legal counsel who made the recommendation that we delete those amendments.
Throughout the city code, the word council refers to this council. And so that was the reason amendment number 4 was suggested to be deleted. And amendment number 5 was suggested to be deleted because all laws become permanent unless stated otherwise, and unless the council takes affirmative action to rescind. So, but making that statement is superfluous and not necessary.
Alderman Payne?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that amendments 4 and 5 are not necessary, and I would certainly vote against both of them if called upon to do so. I mean, I think Police Advisory Board is what, you know, what we chose to call it. That's the way it's commonly referred to, and I totally agree with council that another council, C-O-U-N-S-E-L, that council throughout the code does refer to the city council. I think I don't know that it would be confusing, but hey, let's just call it the board. That's what it is. Thank you.
Alderman Henson?
Was the goal of Amendment 5 to make it obligatory? A lot of discretion rests with the chief. Was the goal to make sure that it wasn't just understaffed and went away by way of neglect, or what was the spirit behind Amendment 5?
I think that was the discussion. The chief, who unfortunately is not here with us this evening to speak to the intent, but I'm sure his intent is to make this a sustainable body, and so that we would not be able to take action in opposition.
This would let the council, if it took an affirmative action to rescind, they could rescind the law. I think that the purpose that Alderwoman Henson has mentioned might, if it's desired to be included in the legislation, you might want to include it in another spot that indicates that this is intended to be a permanent board, or that, similar to a standing committee or a standing board, one that is not to, well, I guess I'll leave it at that. I'm not familiar enough with the intent or the language of the specific bill to be able to comment exactly how you might want to phrase that. But rather than indicating the permanency of the law itself, you're really referring to the fact that this is intended to be a standing board, one that is to be considered to regularly be meeting or to not be relinquished.
Right, that was the nature of my question. I was trying to get a better feel for what the spirit was behind the amendment to see if there was perhaps some other way to capture that. But it sounds like you're saying you have full confidence that this chief and whatever chief may be appointing people, setting meetings, and overseeing this body will always do so, and the intent was not permanency, but to prevent the council from disbanding the board? I believe that's what you said.
I don't think that was our discussion about the council disbanding. I think it was just to lend credence and support for the chief's decision to create this body.
Okay.
Alderman Peon?
The council, the community has asked for this. And in part, the chief is speaking to the desires of the community in creating this board. And so, I mean, I don't know, that's what I.
Thank you. I would agree with council then that the legislation itself, the ordinance itself does satisfy that purpose. So thanks for the insight into what the spirit of it was.
Alderman
Yeah,
Peon?
I think the best place for that would be in the legislative notes. And, I mean, we could add this to every single piece of legislation we do. I mean, it says that it's, it's in business until we say it's not. Well, we could, revise or rescind just about every piece of legislation we have. It's superfluous. I don't think it's necessary. Also, I think that you got to realize this actually started off coming out of the subcommittee recommendations that I chaired for the Public Safety Committee under Alderwoman Finlayson. It is not empowered to do a number of the things we wanted it to do because the members have not received the legislatively dictated training, but I think that it's a good idea. We ought to vote for it, but these two amendments are not necessary and ought to be voted down. Thank you.
Alderwoman Tierney?
Yeah, just to address my colleague's concern, I'm not sure if we got the specific answer, and the fact that it seems like there was some concern that it would be disbanded, and as long as that's out there, that there is not this, fear that this group would get disbanded. There had to be some driver in this language, but I guess there isn't, so that's a good thing. Okay, all right, so we're on.
Alderman Savage?
Thank you. Just going back to the number 4, I just wonder if I could get some assurances from our city attorney, about just to make sure there aren't going to be any kind of unintended consequences calling this a board or grouping this with our other boards. And again, the reason this came up was because the proceedings and many of these meetings will be confidential because of the sensitive nature of some of the things that may be discussed in terms of, I don't know, sources or criminal activity. So if it's a closed meeting, is that okay? Is that going to be in compliance with the other parts of our code that may be requiring that the boards be more open?
Whether you call it a board or a council, if it's a public body, it would be subject to the Open Meetings Act, and if you wanted to have a closed session, you need to comply with the provisions of the Open Meetings Act for closing the session.
Okay, excellent. That's
Thank you.
what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Alderman Rodriguez?
Thank you. And I may have missed it, but what about a reporting mechanism to the council or at least the Public Safety Committee on a regular basis? I don't see anything around us being made aware of what the discussions are in the board or any of the advice or recommendations that are being discussed, so that we're aware of that. Should there be a formal mechanism for that, or is it ad hoc?
Repeat your question?
So the board, the Police Advisory Board will be meeting regularly with the police chief and will be coming up and developing recommendations and guidelines and discussions. At what point does that board inform the council of their discussions or reports or recommendations? Because obviously some of the initiatives that are going to be discussed make sense if the council adopts them as policy initiatives or changes if necessary or appropriate. So I'm wondering if those kind of meetings or reporting mechanisms should be ad hoc, or we should input it here where it's on a quarterly basis.
I would defer to the maker of the legislation, Alderwoman
Alderwoman Tierney?
Kendall Charles.
I just had a clarification. Well, I was thinking about the flow chart, if you will, of other, like the environmental, it could report to the Public Safety Committee. That's a suggestion. Would you be?
Alderwoman Pendle Charles?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a discussion that we did not have within the Public Safety Committee. I guess my thoughts would be, if this is akin to our regular boards and commissions. If that is the case, then yes, we are supposed to be getting reports from our regular boards and commissions that we have. There's been some discussion over at least the time I've been on this council about whether we receive them or we don't receive them. Some sort of kinda, others not really. But that probably needs to be a discussion, because I know we got an email, I guess today or sometime within the past couple of days regarding the transition team and their report regarding boards and commissions. And as I recall reading it, there were some things that needed to be done immediately, some things were short-term goals, and some were long. So that could all be a part of this and how it operates, but we did not have that discussion that I recall. Alderman Payon or Alderwoman Henson? No, we did not. And if that's the case, then that's something that can be discussed in the context of all the other boards and commissions and what the responsibilities are. I don't necessarily think we need to put it in the legislation since this is new and we're not quite even getting our footing yet, but that's something certainly we can ask for irrespective of this piece of legislation.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Savage?
Yeah, I'm just looking through my notes from the Rules and Government Committee from that meeting. We did discuss this, and Alderman Rodriguez, and what I have in my notes is that the police department didn't want to report to the council. The meetings were not going to be public in an effort to kind of encourage candor. So we didn't pursue that at the committee meeting, but I'm sympathetic to
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, that concerns me a bit.
Alderman Arnett?
So, yes, I recall also in the discussion at Rules that this was not like a full civilian review board. This was really advisory. The chief wanted to keep it low-key, fairly much contained within the police department. He didn't want to thwart potential input because it was going to be public and all of those things. I think this is very much of a first trial. It was meant in part to be responsive to the caucus recommendations about having an external review board. And I think this is sort of a cautious step to getting into that. So now we've heard Open Meetings Act, which I think is one of the most disastrous things the state has ever passed in terms of getting good legislation, my own comment. But also, it's really making this much more formal, and it is turning it into a board or commission. And I don't think that it really was conceived as being a board and commission. I thought this was really conceived to be very much a tool for the chief, and would put together, and we do have some officers here. I see heads going up and down. I think we're overdoing this. I think it's really a police body and a thing that the police wanted to do to get good input and help them do a better job, but not turn it into a full-blown city council and all of those sorts of things, and it would be subject to a lot of sunshine.
Thank you. Alderman Pendle Charles?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thinking through all of this, no, you're right. Because the boards and commissions are appointed by the mayor, and they usually have maybe 3-year terms. My understanding, and based on what we're doing here, this is going to be a 1-year term, and the chief himself will do the selection. So no, it is totally different. I'm thinking all through this. It is totally different than the boards and commissions that we have set up now. Now, saying that, we can still, as a body, as a public safety committee, still ask for some kind of report. Just like we do with fire and police, we're asking for quarterly reports from them. I believe OAM twice a year, and, or incorporated, and, risk management as well, maybe once a year, but no, you're absolutely right, I'm thinking through it. The mayor appoints the boards and commissions, it's usually 3-year terms, this is not it, but we can still ask for a report and share it with the rest of the body.
Alderman Rodriguez?
Okay, thank you, yeah, because, I mean, I don't know, defer to Mr. Miller, but.
Police advisory group?
No, I'm not worried about the terminology.
Let's call it a club.
I'm not worried about the terminology, but in fact, the terms are 3-year terms. The board itself, made up of the members, have the ability to adopt the bylaws, the rules, and regulations as deems necessary and desirable, which is fine. But the goals are police policies and procedures of the police department, crime reduction strategies, cooperative programs between the department and the community. And so I just want to know what the actual mechanism is going to be. Do I have to informally ask someone what the cooperative programs between the department and the community are? Do I have to ask someone informally what the crime reduction strategies being discussed are? So if there's some sort of report, does it have to be maintained confidential, or is it going to be circulated? I mean, there's the balance between transparency and what in the internal discussions with this board going on, which I completely appreciate that they could be confidential in nature. But the policies and procedures and strategies and programs, I don't see how those should be confidential, honestly. So I'm just trying to get to what the objective of this board and how we as a council or body can support that, and be informed as well as the public, obviously. Yeah.
Alderman Arnett's next, thank you.
I do want to say something, but I always want to listen to our city clerk.
Boards and commissions for the city are appointed by the mayor, and they are required to submit minutes. And their minutes are from each meeting, and they are posted on the website. So anything you want to know, they are required to post an agenda and post minutes, and they are required by January the 15th of every year to do an annual report. So it depends on how hard you want to, what you want to see, what will be available.
So to that end, and I really got freaked a little bit about the Open Meetings Act, our former colleague, Alderman Budge, can't stop abusing himself, so he watches us, and he's dialed in and said, you really need to step back. I think we need the chief here. This is really something that was created for the chief, by the chief, for the chief, and for the police department. It really was meant to be internal guidance. It's not meant to be a board or commission. It's really not necessarily meant to have be photographed, televised, and all of those things. So I would submit that we can do ourselves a favor by postponing this for one council meeting, have the chief speak with us and give us a sense of what he wants to accomplish with this, and make sure we're not getting ourselves into deep water.
Alderwoman Pinto-Charles?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My suggestion would be, I forgot what my suggestion was. With any report, of course, if the fire chief or the police chief come before the public safety, we're not going to talk about personnel issues. So any confidentiality statutes or rules or laws or whatever that would govern that situation would govern this situation as well. I don't have a problem. I don't think the alderpersons who serve on the Public Safety Committee have a problem either with having a report from the police chief once a year or twice a year or whatever, and follow the same rules we normally would. I don't personally see a reason to postpone it, but if it's the will of the body, fine. I think we've making a kind of a mountain out of a molehill here, but that's just my personal.
I move that we
opinion.
postpone for one meeting and invite the chief to explain to us more fully what he's trying to accomplish, and make sure we don't get him encumbered in things that will dilute the whole purpose of this body in terms of open meeting and reports and all of those things. I think we better hear from the chief. So
Okay,
I make
Alderman
that
Tierney?
motion.
He still has a motion on the floor, but I would.
There's not seconded, so there is
Okay.
no
I did
second
second it.
Uh,
I did second
can
it.
Okay.
Can I still, can I just interject and say, I think it was Rich that had a point. I think we need to call it something else. Or consider calling it something else, because the words matter, and it's called a board, and as Regina said, it's gonna require then minutes and da-da-da-da-da. I don't, and that's the overkill that,
Mr. Mayor?
Alderwoman Finlayson?
just throwing it out there.
I just concur. There's a motion on the floor to postpone. It's been seconded. And if you really want to look at the purpose, lines 43 through 45 on page 1.
Okay, all those in favour of postponing it? Alderwoman Bindell Charles?
Yeah, maybe I didn't hear correctly. Is our clerk saying that we are asking for minutes off of this piece of legislation?
If this is approved tonight, and it is a board and commission, it's required to meet all of the requirements of the boards and commissions in our code. And they are required to post agenda and required to have minutes and report and have an annual report.
But I guess my question is, if this is not being, chosen by if the mayor isn't setting a term limit on this, and so is it really a board, I guess is my question.
According to the code, the way that it's
So that means the mayor has input on this. Am I,
We
because
don't
would,
want that.
a mayor appoints people to the boards and commissions.
so would this be one of them?
Yeah.
Well, if that's the case, yeah, then we do have a problem.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, so we've got a motion to postpone, right? We have a second to postpone it.
All in favor?
All those in favour?
Well, it's still be discussion. Give the Alderwoman a chance.
Yeah, I was not under that impression till just a couple of
I know.
seconds ago.
Yeah.
If this is what Madam Clerk is saying, then that's truly not the intent of this.
Okay. Alderwoman Finlayson?
If we look at the legislation, it's under the category of boards, commissions, and committees. So that's inclusive of everything that we have, okay? And in line 43, there is established a police advisory board to advise the police chief on matters pertaining to the Annapolis Police Department. These matters are to include, but not limited to, the agency policies, procedures, and crime issues. That does not bring it to the level of a commission or of a board that's appointed by the mayor. And the city clerk is saying yes. But this is a body that's created by the police chief for his purposes. That's how I'm reading this. Now, if
Yes, I think you can.
I think you can too.
Mr. Mayor, I'd call the
I'm
question.
calling the question.
Question
Oh,
being whether
good
it's
job,
postponed
Fred.
or not.
I think we've got a...
He needs a
Alderman Paoli?
Yeah.
I'd call the question.
Okay.
He needs a second to call the question. There you go. Now we have to, all in favor.
All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Those against?
No.
Been postponed and-
Had to do it once tonight. Come on. Haven't done it in a long time.
Good, you gotta do
Mr.
your
Mayor,
job. That's it.
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Savage?
could we request more information from the law office and the intervening time until this gets back on the agenda, just to clarify some of the,
I'm not sure I'm understanding.
I just wanted more information on your analysis on whether or not, what the impacts are of having this under the board's
Well,
legislative section of the code and the Open Meetings Act applicability.
I'm happy to provide that, but I'm not sure what you're asking for, Alderman Savage.
Questions like, does this fall under the Open Meetings Act? Do they have to be appointed by the mayor?
That's up to
Appointed
the
by council?
legislative intent. What does this legislature intend?
I don't think we need to have legislation at this point. Let the chief form this group on his own
Okay.
commission.
Mr. Mayor,
Right,
I'd
because
call
what we're
all the
talking about is
questions
how you
tonight.
establish a public body.
You just want to adjourn.
All right. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can sort that out. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the agenda has been completed.
Okay, we've got a couple of things. On Thursday at Asbury Church, the transition team at 6 o'clock will be presenting their findings. So we'd like as many people as possible to come to Asbury Church, 6 o'clock on West Street. Also, I would like to... Yep.
Yes, unfortunately, I can't make it. I have a school-related meeting that evening at my school, so unfortunately, I can't do it.
You're excused.
Thank you, teacher.
Also, I would like to thank from the bottom of my heart Chief Stokes for the tremendous effort that he's done as acting city attorney.
4 more years. 4 more years.
And I would like to welcome Teresa Sutherland to the team, and nice to have you. Nice to have you here taking some heat with the rest of us.
Right now.
Anybody else, anything for good order?
Mr. Mayor, I'd move that we adjourn.
All those
Second.
in favour?
Second, aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes
Aye.
have it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.